Fantasy Alarm NBA DFS show with Jon Impemba and James Grande.
What's going on, everybody? Jon Impemba here with James Grande. Welcome into the Fantasy Alarm NBA DFS Playbook Show. It is Wednesday. We are off of a Tuesday 0-game slate into a Wednesday 14-game main slate, James, and it has been chock full of news that we're still waiting to come out. You were on the playbook. The chalk plays right now, if you go look at our draft percentage forecasts, are off the charts where the field is all going to. Value is opening. We have a game at over 240 total. It is going to be a wild and what I am expecting to be a crazy high-scoring main slate here that we're going to have tonight.
It is a slate. That is for sure. I respect the NBA's decision to not have games on Election Day on Tuesday. The NHL and other sports just say, F it, we don't care. But then again, the NHL seemingly doesn't care about anything. If you followed news in the NHL over last, their whole existence. So it doesn't surprise to see them playing. But it would be nice, John. I'm not going to complain as much basketball as we can get, especially for those with League Pass where you can just flip around to 14 different games. Well, depending on your market. But there's 2 games tomorrow. Could we not just have at least 12-4 or 13-3 or 11-5 or Can we divvy this up just a little bit more?
Well, but you think so? You think so? Yeah, we got 2 games tomorrow, contending with the Thursday Night Football. Got to make sure you don't take any eyes off of the Chicago Bears going up against the who are the Bears playing? Carolina Panthers, right? We all need to be focused. All need to be focused on the Panthers Bears tomorrow. We can't have NBA to watch. So listen, I'm with you here. We got a big slate today. We got a big slate on Friday. But let's just get into it because there is a lot of news that we have to discuss here. Again, you were on the playbook. Why don't you just give us a quick rundown of the injury news we're waiting on, the injury news that we already have here today?
Yeah, so I'll just start with most recent update. Walker Kessler was downgraded from questionable to doubtful. He has now been listed out for the next 2 weeks. So I don't know where the doubtful tag came from. If you were going to miss 2 weeks, you knew ahead of time that he wasn't going to play. So Walker Kessler out. Going down some notable questionable tags. I think the most notable is Anthony Davis. He is questionable. He did go through shoot around. He has been on the record saying he wants to play all 82 games. We will see how that plays out, but he did go through shoot around this morning. So did Herb Jones for the New Orleans Pelicans. He went through shoot around despite being listed questionable. On that same team, Zion Williamson expecting the birth of his first child tonight. Congrats to Zion. He is out for New Orleans. No, not with the Twitter. Well, okay. Yes, I guess it's not with Mariah Mills.
Sure.
It's with his baby.
I was gonna say which one are we talking about here, right?
We'll figure. I mean, congrats to Zion. He's a father. As a father, congrats to you, sir. He is out. Herb Jones questionable in that one. Some other questionable tags. Lou Dort for the Oklahoma City Thunder questionable. Draymond Green has been downgraded to out for the Golden State Warriors. Jalen Duren questionable, and Bradley Beal is questionable to make his debut. Some news we got throughout the day. Derek Lively, the second for the Dallas Mavericks, he is questionable. Ben Simmons listed questionable. No one else has been really ruled out during the day. I guess Jaden Ivey, Alec Burks, but we got that late last night. Chris Middleton late last night. Rozier out. McCollum, Jamal Murray, De'Aaron Fox, Devin Booker all out. So that is the most notable news. Shout out to Faisal. John, I was going to message you this, but I was saving it for on air. Last night, I'm on Twitter, just, minding my own business, or X, minding my own business. I got a follow last night. Faisal, he found us. He found us.
A follow on Twitter. We definitely appreciate it. You're always in our chat. So in there, hello to you as well. And he's saying, just reporting now, Bradley Beal in. Love that. Good to see making his debut here tonight for the Suns in that matchup against the Bulls here. Guys, if you have any questions, feel free to throw them in the chat. We are more than happy to talk it up with you, give you some live advice. Picks, props, bets, you name it, we covered here as well. We break down the DraftKings main slate for everyone this evening. Let's get involved here so we can break down this DraftKings slate. How's that sound, James?
Yeah, let's get into it.
All right, let's give me a moment while I pull this up here. You know, the old machine is just the fans blowing hard. It's working in overtime right now as we work our way into 14 games. It's got a lot going on. All right, here we go.
It does.
14 games is up. Point guard position. Actually, before we go position by position, let's talk about some game totals. Talk about some pace up spots. How's that sound?
Yeah, let's do it. There's two notable game totals, right? We don't need to spend too much time, I think, there. It is Utah, Indiana is your slate high, 242.5. 6.5 point favorites are Indiana at home. And then the second game, Washington, Charlotte, 240 or 239.5, depending where you're looking. Now down to 2. It was a 4-point spread. So those two are the primary game totals. And we'll just touch on things throughout. There's nothing else close to that. There's only one other game even approaching 230, a bunch of games in the 220s. We even have a couple games below 220 in Phoenix, even with Bradley Beal potentially playing and are expected to play now with the recent report. And then pace spots. I think you and I, we talk about pace, but what is pace? So we went ahead and added a indicator on the playbook today, just to give you guys some context on like where the best pace environments are, who's going to maximize the possessions. Well, John, pace usually correlates with game totals.
Yeah.
Washington, first in pace, taking on the Charlotte Hornets, fourth in pace. Jazz are ninth in pace tonight. They get the Pacers, second in pace. So your two games with 240 plus points expected have 4 of the top 9 teams in pace this season. Some of the best spots in general for pace up are the Knicks, who rank 24th, take on the Spurs. The Spurs are 7th in pace, so the Knicks get a nice pace bump there. And obviously, conversely, the Spurs are playing way down in pace. The Suns are 15th. The Bulls are 28th, so the Bulls get a nice bump in that game. The Cavaliers are 20th. The Thunder are 5th. One of the better game environments on the board. Interesting game to get to, I would say, because Cleveland's at full capacity. Thunder might be as well if Lou Dort plays, but big pace-up spot for Cleveland. And Toronto just plays slower than everyone else. They're 29th in pace. Dallas is 12th. So natural pace-up spot for Toronto tonight as well.
Got it. All right, let's break into this point guard position here. Go position by position. Again, you guys have any questions, feel free to throw them in chat. Our guy XDS here saying cover this Underdog. He says Superflex. I don't even mean snake drafts, but I will say I do like doing the snake drafts.
Same.
Over on Underdog Fantasy is definitely different than the salary cap drafts where everybody kind of builds the same roster, go into Underdog and do their snake drafts over there. I know Sean Mitchell is always crushing those Underdog, snake drafts that they got going on for NBA and NFL. So check all of those out for sure. All right, point guard spot, a lot of top end plays. We talked about this on the show this morning. It's not that we don't like Luka Doncic. You can always go ahead and play him if you want. But when Kyrie Irving is there, we do feel like maybe it takes away a little bit of his ceiling. Obviously, he was giving us those 70-plus fantasy point efforts earlier on this year when Kyrie wasn't there, taking down a little bit. Then you add in the fact that Toronto does play really slow, and they are kind of decent defensively at times. And then you look at SGA at 10-4. Curry at 10-1, Halliburton's $9,800, Lillard's $9,100. We just find ourselves not really looking to spend up too much at the point guard spot. And the chalk play, according to our roster ship percentages right now, is the guy that we have on the cover, the guy we touted this morning. That's LaMelo Ball. He's $8,900 on DraftKings. Everyone's going there, and it's you and I talk a lot about pivoting, finding the right spots to pivot. But you also need to make the right pivots. I don't know if being off of an $8,900 LaMelo Ball is the right pivot here tonight, even if the roster ship's getting there.
Yeah, I mean, you'd be hard pressed not to go to LaMelo at 89 over the rest of this top tier of point guard. The price is too low, the spot is too good, the pace is too good. No Terry Rozier, like there's really no nothing bad. You just, when you're talking about LaMelo, the minutes, John, I think, that's something you and I touched on a back-to-back after being limited to 33 max, just out of the clouds, 39 minutes in a non 39 minutes in regulation, right? So 48 minutes in a regulation game. He's had 8 minutes the entire night, or 9 minutes rather. Math is hard. Look, the two things, LaMelo did everything we thought LaMelo would do. He triple-doubled while he fouled out and had multiple turnovers. And that's
he's fouled out twice already, which is hilarious that he just can't get out of foul, right?
Yeah, I mean, we've seen this about a lot with like younger players where they just can't contain themselves. Jokic was like this. Jokic always picked up stupid fouls at the beginning of his career, and you're like, yo, you're too good to be just committing stupid fouls. Jaren Jackson still does it. I mean, there's a bunch of really good players that need to figure it out. LaMelo's one of them. So, like, yeah, if that happens, that sucks. And LaMelo's going to play, we saw it, 22 minutes in a game where he fouls out and you don't get anywhere near value. But
the 31 minutes could have to do with the fact that he had 5 fouls too in that game.
Correct.
Right? So.
Yep, 100%. So, like, you don't love to see like the fouls 4+ in 4 straight games. Like, that's not a great feeling. But this is really good chalk considering Washington is not only the fastest team in terms of pace, they are the worst defense in the league. Right. Like it's check and checkmate. 8,900 for LaMelo. Now, I think it could be a case if there was one other guy at this tier I would play. It's Tyrese Halliburton, and like he's at like 125th the ownership tonight.
Yeah,
and we've seen Halliburton significantly rostered almost every slate, and he was going to absolutely smash in this San Antonio game, but they won by 40, right? And we saw like it's hard to expect Halliburton to have 27 actual point quarters. Like he scored 27 points in a quarter. He hasn't scored 27 points in any other game this year, but he has a really high ceiling and a really high floor that LaMelo doesn't, right? Like LaMelo has the higher ceiling. I think both you and I would probably agree, just because
he has the triple-double upside. So that's
more regularly, right? Like more regular. Like I think Halliburton could give us that, but like definitely the better floor with Tyrese Halliburton. Obviously $900 more. I also wouldn't be against playing both. But I do think that would be the other guy at this tier I would look to.
Yeah, if you're making multiple lineups tonight, I definitely recommend one lineup being a fade LaMelo at the least. If you're playing one lineup, it all depends on your risk aversion now, right? Are you okay with not playing a guy that goes for 70? Something that you did the other day. You're like, I didn't play with Halliburton. That's just I can't win now. That's just the way the cookie crumbled there, And then there are other times where LaMelo does get in that foul trouble, and now you're cruising with Halliburton. So if you're playing a single lineup, risk aversion here with going off of LaMelo. If you're making multiple lineups, definitely get different exposures here. The Prince wants to know how many players from one team would we put on. So he's asking game stacks here. We talked 240 total in Washington and Charlotte. I know we're in on Kyle Kuzma today. I know we're in on LaMelo Ball. I like Gordon Hayward. You like Jordan Poole. How many players from one game, how many players from one team would you put in a single lineup here tonight, James?
Well, tonight being the operative word, I'd say, because it's obviously slate dependent. Like we saw, I played when the Pelicans were just CJ McCollum last week. I played 4, right? Mm-hmm. They're also 4 tonight. Like they're also just Brandon Ingram tonight, but it's a different spot. I'm not getting to any more than 3 from one team. Maybe I'm not against playing 5 Washington Charlotte guys if you're comfortable doing that, but you obviously need this game to play out the way that Vegas expects it to, right? You need no foul trouble, a lot of points, a lot of pace, which is obviously what they've done. They've played, both teams have played extremely fast with no defense. So realistically, you can, I would say 3 feels like the most from one team tonight, but all that could potentially change. What if Nikola Jokic was ruled out before lock, or what if insert star from one team is ruled out? There's always the option to potentially play more. If Brandon Ingram was out tonight, John, I might play 4 Pelicans just on principle that they're down every star. They might lose by 30, but they have to play blowout. So it's all very dependent. On tonight's slate, as of right now, 3 is the most I would get from one team. And game stacking Washington, Charlotte, or Utah, Indiana would probably be 5 if that was if that's good enough for you guys.
Sure. Moving down from LaMelo Ball here, we talked a lot of Malcolm Brogdon, Tyrese Maxey, Fred VanVleet. Good 8K tier here. Jordan Poole in that mix as well. Do you find yourself, again, if you're not playing LaMelo, do you find yourself gravitating towards one of these players over to the other?
Not really. Jordan Poole probably for tournaments, and that just goes back to the game environment. I don't love the Houston LA game. Houston in a pretty big pace down spot, and they're not playing really that fast themselves. Lakers defending pretty well. You can get there. VanVleet's had a 50-point ceiling multiple times. Maxey, really tough spot against Boston with your boy Derek White back.
Right.
No thanks. I mean, again, really tough to we've talked about it a lot lately. Hard to just quantify a singular matchup, but
right.
Derek White clamps people, and I don't want that.
Derek White has had at least 3 steals plus blocks in all but one game this season. So I took the over 1.5 over on Prize Picks this evening on that prop day. So got to get at least 2 steals plus blocks for our guy. He's got that new dad strength, birth of a new child coming in first game after that. He's probably feeling pretty good. Guys, appreciate everybody tuning in here. Again, if you have any questions, throw them in the chat. We are talking to you guys, Faisal, XDS, the Prince, I see through you. And if you haven't already, please like the stream. It certainly helps us out a ton here. Throw some comments as well. If you haven't already subscribe to the channel. We go live every day, 5 o'clock Eastern time. We have numerous fantasy football shows during the day. And of course, James and I have our NBA DFS preview show in the morning. So if you're just finding us, if you're new to Fantasy Alarm here, welcome in, get involved. And we're here to help you guys take down tonight's slate. More point guard spots. We talk a lot about Darius Garland and how much we do like him. As you mentioned, this is a 1-point spread, 1.5, I think last I saw, between these two teams here. We're always willing to pay more for Darius Garland. $7,200 coming off of that injury. Feels a little bit too cheap. He's played 30 minutes, 32 minutes in the 2 games since he's come back. Gotta think this might be a ramp-up spot for him.
Yeah, definitely feels like a ramp-up spot. Definitely a better spot for Cleveland in general if Lou Dort doesn't play, because Lou Dort is a very good defender, and no switching onto Garland at all would be involved here. But yeah, 7,200 is a really good price in a really good spot in terms of game environment. OKC has definitely not been great defensively. They're bottom 10 in the league. They're also a very fast team, and we mentioned that we were talking about the pace. This is a big pace up spot. So as long as Garland, I shouldn't even say the limit has mattered that much, because he took 17 shots and 13 free throws last game.
He's fine.
It's just, I would say for Garland, I really like spending up and I really like spending down at point guard today. So he just falls in that awkward range for me. And I'm not saying anything that isn't reflecting in kind of like an ownership or
Sure.
how I expect the public to perceive this position, because public spending up and public spending down, I'm just kind of eating that and moving on and being different elsewhere. But you want to be different. Darius Garland is not going to go rostered at all tonight.
Yeah, I'm with you there too. Feels like a pretty safe floor for him as well. Do we go back to the Cam Thomas well?
He is just always going to be in play for tournaments if he can score the way he can score. I don't think the Ben Simmons news has much impact on him, because he's taking 33 shots with or without Ben Simmons, or he's taking 24 shots with or without Ben Simmons.
Mm-hmm.
So I like Cam in tournaments. I don't love the price. But you're talking about a guy who got 6x in just points last game, right? He scored 45 actual at 7,100. So hard not to just blanket statement him tournaments moving forward if he's going to be this effective offensively.
Yeah, 100% there. And actually, yes, I see your question on the center's position here. We'll hit that momentarily, but we're definitely in on a couple of those guys here today. Especially Bam coming off of that crazy output that he just had, and we're always Shingun fans here. You mentioned some value here. We're kind of scrolling down. Dennis Schroeder continues to play. You talk about Toronto playing at a slow pace. This is a pace up spot then for Toronto here against Dallas. We know Shooter's not great defensively. Will have his hands full tonight with Irving and Luka Doncic, but some good production out of him here. Bradley Beal. Any interest in the return of Bradley Beal here tonight?
No. I think this is one of the games I crossed off my board.
Okay.
You can always play like one of the Bulls blankets, like another blanket statement, like one
Sure.
of them could go off. But Phoenix is hard to get to. Durant's expensive. Beal, we don't have any like confirmation on what the minutes are going to be. And I know like 7,100 is a discount for Bradley Beal, the player, but it's not like a discount on, we don't know what the minutes are going to be. We don't know what this game's going to look like. Phoenix is kind of playing slow. So I'm kind of out on Bradley Beal tonight. And you know what? If he goes off, good for Bradley Beal.
We just got some injury news here. Ben Simmons ruled out tonight for Brooklyn. So however that may impact lineups, maybe Lonnie Walker finds his way back into the starting lineup. We've seen them go very small in the past.
O'Neal?
What?
O'Neal, you think?
Maybe O'Neal. They could go O'Neal to match up with the forwards that we see the Clippers roll out there with George and Kawhi, and now they have obviously Harden and Westbrook and Zubac. I mean, I wasn't really in on this game much at all. I don't know your opinions on it, but does Zubac now become interesting? Again, they're going to go super small. That could also just take him off the floor too. We've seen them go, PG-13 at the 5 in the past. It'll be interesting to see how the Clippers kind of now handle a smaller lineup. We know they won't play Duron Sharp or Trendon Watford more than like 10 minutes. So, not really sure how to handle that one.
Yeah, and only thing I'll say with Zubac is that Plumlee is out. So, like, maybe that suggests that he'll play more. But you're right. Like, they could just be like, nah. Because Terrence Mann could come back. They could just run like 5 guards. Because what's the difference? That's what Brooklyn's gonna.
Didn't they also just activate Primo or sign Primo?
Yeah, they signed him to a deal. Former lottery pick so he could find his way into the Clippers are. That situation's a nightmare. Just for fantasy. So I'm just looking at things here, John, just to bring up just want to see if there's anything that Simmons does for me, like moves the needle, because we know Cam Johnson, Claxton, Simmons. Spencer Dinwiddie's a 0.95 fantasy point per minute producer this year. That's okay. Cam Thomas, it's a very small sample without those guys. 0.15 fantasy points per minute, just to revisit that conversation. So, I don't know what their starting lineup is. I expect it to be either Walker or Royce O'Neal and just go super small and pray to God that the Clippers also do the same, because Zubac will eat their lunch. But Ben Simmons being out definitely presents them a little bit of a problem here.
He was going to be one of their best defenders on the wings that Clippers can put out there. So going to be some trouble there for Brooklyn, I think, here tonight. Any other guys in this low 6K, high 5K? I know you said there's a lot of value here tonight on the point guard spot, and we'll get to that in a moment. Obviously, with the big names ruled out, with the already dealing with Pelicans, dealing with the guard situation in Detroit as well. Where are we going when it comes to some low end point guards and values?
So I don't have much in any 5K tier, because I just rather spend my money on Pistons, which, we said it. They're going to be our Minnesota Twins this year, John, and that's fine. I'm good with that. Killian Hayes is someone that you and I have had like a couple discussions about the last few slates. The minutes have been very secure. The peripheral stats have been very secure. It's just always been about Killian Hayes is a terrible. He has been a terrible offensive player. And the shots right now for what they are, 8, 12, not like overwhelming volume, but they're going in.
Yeah.
I mean, he's made multiple threes in 2 of the last 3, and that's led to double-digit points in 3 straight, 25 plus fantasy points in 3 straight. And at the start of this, he was 4,600. He's coming off 42 fantasy points, and they didn't move his price. They moved his price $100 up.
Yeah.
So
he has such a low floor. It's like the ultimate boom bust. Because like you said, you and I talk about this a lot, and we'll talk about this in a moment, talking about point guards. The Daniels versus Hawkins argument, right? It's like oh, Daniels is probably the better player, but he takes 6 shots. Hawkins shoots 25 times, so if he hits 7 of them, he's taking, he's hitting more shots than Daniels is taking. Hayes is taking 8 and 12. That's great. But then you have Sasser here, who's giving you double-digit shots now, 10, 16, 10. He's taking more, gives him more opportunities to make more. Now, lately, obviously, the last game kind of fell off, but 3 straight games here of over 30 fantasy points is a little bit cheaper. I would probably still lean towards Killian Hayes here, but, the Sasser is probably going to be a bit more appealing just because you're saving some money here.
So I'm actually Team Sasser today. Okay. It's close. I like both. Both made the playbook. Like I would play both in a lineup, truthfully. But like I feel better about Sasser in this game because I think when you're talking about this game and the flow of it, it's the NBA, anything can happen. But if let's say Jalen Duren doesn't play and Marvin Bagley starting at center, how does Detroit stay in this game?
Sure.
And
they don't stay in this game anyways. He's played 34 minutes and a 14-point and 11-point loss. So
well, the Golden State game was close. The Golden State game was close throughout. I'll grant you the other what was the other game? The Phoenix game.
Yeah.
But if this game blows out, Sasser is definitely more likely to stay on the floor. Now maybe they both play.
I'd say, do we have Popcorn Machine? Do they both play together possibly?
The only other option they have is Umadi, right? Who played 15 minutes off the bench. So if you do think this game blows out, I feel better about the Sasser minutes. There was a blowout. Which game was the blowout? They got torched in, I think, or they were losing. Maybe it's the Phoenix game, and they took everyone off the floor, but they left Sasser on. Yes, Marcus Sasser. So Killian Hayes in that game, John, where he played 34 minutes, did not play the final 234.
Sure.
Which, 36 minutes, obviously, a great pace. 34 minutes is great too. Sasser played through that with the bench, with the rest of the bench. So just throwing it out there, if this game got out of hand early, they did go with Umadi, and they did not go with Hayes. So you look at the point spread. What do we have in this game? 12.5.
They did play a lot together though. That fourth quarter was mostly Hayes and Sasser on the floor.
Yeah. So I think if this game's competitive, it's Hayes and Sasser with Cade probably, right? They're probably just going super small. Oscar Thompson. They didn't play Marvin Bagley at all in the fourth quarter, and they played Isaiah Stewart.
Yeah.
So they just go small most likely because Thompson is that energy guy. I mean, he's not obviously going to have a tough assignment on Giannis.
Sasser's basically filling in for Alec Burks at this point.
Right. So that's why I think I would lean Sasser a little bit. I do like the potential that he would, I think, still play in a blowout. He's a rookie and who's still learning how to play in the NBA. So, but ultimately, I like them both. It's hard to predict blowout. I'm going
to throw in the chat, too, for those of you who aren't aware of Popcorn Machine. It's the greatest website in the world.
It sure is.
It gives you the exact game flows of guys subbing in and out. So check out Popcorn Machine if you haven't done it already. We use it a lot in trying to figure out rotations, what guys' minutes are real versus not real, blowout run. Closing rotations is huge, finding out what guys are on the floor in crunch time when it matters. So I just popped the link for Popcorn Machine in the chat. Make sure you check that out if you haven't known that existed already. I'll throw it in our Discord as well once we're done with today's show. Any other point guards here?
No.
Okay. Shooting guard. Again, a lot of guys up top that we have discussed. Where are you on Donnie Mitch tonight? $9,600.
Tournaments. I mean, you're making the decision if you're playing Mitchell, you're probably not playing Halliburton, or maybe you're pairing him with LaMelo, but then you're not playing one of the top centers on the board, right? If you're going Mitchell. So I think you can definitely play him in tournaments. I think he has a massive ceiling, as high as anyone arguably in the league, because he scored 70 points in an NBA game. And I think that's what that's what classifies a ceiling. So you could definitely get to Mitchell. Shooting guard is not a position I'm necessarily. I like the mid tier. I like the value at shooting guard. I think throughout the day, and we did the podcast last night. And
it's just the highest expected rostered player on the slate is at shooting guard tonight. So it's That's kind of where the problem is. So, we'll run it down because there are plenty of awesome spots for guys here. We like Bain, Cunningham, Hero, Ingram by himself, Malcolm Brogdon we've discussed, Shaedon Sharp, Zach LaVine, like a lot of really strong plays in the mid-tier that I think they're all viable. You go check out our player pool grid that we have in the playbook. There are guys listed in there that you can kind of fill out your rosters with. But the biggest chalk of the night, and maybe there's some credence to fading because he's so highly rostered, is Jordan Hawkins. Now, the fact that this guy is coming off of a game where he's scored 49 fantasy points, 10 of 19 from the floor, 38 minutes. He did it in Denver as well.
Didn't miss.
Now he's going into Minnesota, a team that just beat the Celtics, that held the Celtics to like 107 points or something like that? In overtime. One of the best defensive teams in the NBA, Minnesota, right now. It feels like this is a game where Jordan Hawkins could miss. The problem is, what is a miss? If he goes for 24 fantasy points at $4,700, that's still kind of a hit at his price point. So, like, you need him to have this Detroit 1-for-7 game for like a fade to really pay off the fade. So, but we're seeing him. I mean, we have him at like 40%, and that's going to be updated as we get close to the roster lock. But I've scoured some of the other sites out there. I've seen him as much as 65, 70% in large field GBP tournaments. So, I mean, again, if I'm making one or two lineups tonight, one is for sure just going to fade Hawkins out of principle here. And if you're risk aversion, the upside of fading him could leap you ahead of the field if you pick the right player, of course. And there's plenty of value on tonight's slate we could get to today.
Yeah, I think that what you just said sums it up perfectly. I don't know if you knew this either. FanDuel, John, he is $4,300. So he's even cheaper. He's even cheaper. So the ownership is. I mean, look, there's a lot of things going into this game. No Zion, no McCollum in Minnesota does not help their case of like keeping this game competitive or really being really good offensively, because this is a good offensive team when they're at full strength, but they're not. And now they are going up against the best defensive unit in basketball as it currently stands. I'm okay getting to Jordan Hawkins. I think it's good chalk. This is not a situation where you even have like in past slates. So on FanDuel you can do this. DraftKings you can't. At least I don't think so. Like they priced Dyson Daniels up as if they expected him to start, and then Jordan Hawkins starts, and you're like, oh, but then Dyson Daniels is $5K, and you still have this Jordan Hawkins at 47. We've seen Jordan Hawkins play big minutes, start, play in blowouts, and take a lot of shots. What do we got?
A Jazz starting lineup that includes Keontae George and Agbaji tonight.
Okay, so that is amazing because you know that I am a Keontae George stan.
Yeah, John Collins starting at 5 tonight, not Kelly Olynyk.
Okay, so do you want to go there now? We can go there now.
Let's just talk about it, right? Because we're on guard anyway. So Keontae George and Agbaji are here, so we can talk about it.
I love Keontae George. He looked really good in the preseason. He has not been amazing this year. He's been about a 0.7 fantasy per minute player, but he is a very good point guard. He has a very highly coveted player in the draft. He is $3,800, and he is in the best game environment on the board. So I'm playing Keontae George at 3,800. I think that's very interesting. I actually really like that they're giving him a chance to start. I actually really like the fact that he's not playing with Kelly Olynyk, John, because what does Kelly Olynyk do? Like Kelly Olynyk he does everything. And I think this gives Keontae George more room to operate. I like them taking Talon Horton-Tucker out of the starting lineup too, because Talon Horton-Tucker has, taken a lot of assists up. I love this for Keontae George. Is he a core play? Remains to be seen. He is 100% in my player pool. I think this does a lot for Utah.
This is what I like about Keontae George being in the starting lineup. He's going to get the starting minutes, and then when this game blows out, he's going to get the finish run because they're not going to take him off the floor for anybody. Unlike in the past where it's like he would get just the blowout run. So even in games they get blown out, he plays 16 minutes. It's like, we didn't really get what we needed out of him here. Faisal saying, would you play George over Hawkins now? You're saving $1,100 on that move, $900 on that move.
It's an infinitely better game environment. How about that? Like, you're in a 242 total in this one. So without, the numbers look really bad without Walker Kessler. Keontae George 0.45 fantasy points per minute is not great. 17% usage, also not that great. Over Hawkins, I still feel better about Hawkins in like terms of shot attempts, right? Like Keontae George isn't going to go out there and just suddenly take 45.
No, you won't.
Tonight. Like Hawkins is playing without Zion and McCollum. Like I have a better feeling for Hawkins going out there to shoot a lot than I would.
Here's my thoughts on Hawkins. He might start off slow in this game because he's facing the Timberwolves starting unit, but they're not going to take him off the floor. And at some point, he's going to be playing with the NAW and Wendell Moore and Leonard Miller and like Luka Garza on the floor. And this is just going to be a YMCA game where they inbound the ball. Right. Jordan Hawkins runs up, just chucks a three, and they just play like 3-point ball for the final like 4 minutes of this game. And we've seen guys all of a sudden just like knock down 4 or 5 threes when no one's trying to play defense. They're just trying to get this game over with. And I can see Hawkins all of a sudden knocking out 10 points in the final 8 minutes of this game because it's all the backups for Minnesota getting their cardio in,
Yeah, and I think like if that's a FanDuel question, the answer is no. Jordan Hawkins is 4,300. Keontae George is the same position, shooting guard. I can understand it more on DraftKings because you said it. So it's like there's obviously a wider gap. There's a $900 difference or $800 difference. I like Keontae George here.
You can play them both now at this point. You can play Jordan Hawkins as shooting guard, play Keontae George into your guard spot. You just opened up more value. As more value opens up, does this slate move from a pair and balance lineup to a stars and scrubby bit now lineup because of how much value is there? Now you can get to Joker, you can get to Durant or AD or something like that here tonight.
I think so. You'll be able to play, like if you still wanted to stay on LaMelo too and be like eat that chalk, which is fine. You can still pair with Jokic. Like I've done that plenty tonight. So I don't see why. This obviously helps getting you to Jokic.
Like I want to know, would we not play Olynyk anymore? I still think Olynyk's fine. He's going to be the backup big for this game. They don't have a backup power forward or center really on the roster. So John Collins and
Whoa. You're going to really do that to Yurtseven?
Do you think they play Yurtseven tonight, truthfully? Because if you do, then we have to talk about Yurtseven.
I think he's in the rotation.
If Yurtseven plays 15 minutes tonight, he has legitimate 30 fantasy point potential.
I think that was live if Kelly O started. Yeah. Right? Like with Kelly O starting, I think like 15 minutes is live. With John Collins starting, I don't know. Yurtseven probably like 8. What he's done, like 7-8 minute cap. That's probably like I feel like a safe prediction.
Yeah. So listen, Kellyo's still in my player pool tonight. He's going to get in the floor in his usual role, maybe even a minutes boost. But Walker Kessler out now, and the fact that they've shifting John Collins to the 5 just opens up more potential space for him there for sure. Any other shooting guard value here then? Obviously some things are changing for everybody. I know you're on the playbook. You're updating things as we go. Anybody else appeal to you? Do you go Matt Ryan tonight at $4,300?
If he starts, there's a definite case. They started him for Zion last time Zion was out. So fully expect Ryan to start. Maybe I don't. Maybe they don't go double big with Nance, and then they use Cody Zeller as their backup big. Like they could always do that with the way Minnesota, if they wanted to match Minnesota's lineup, or they can space Towns, which Boston did, and put Towns in a blender immediately, right? Like you could do one of those two things. Matt Ryan's fine. 4,300's getting up there, but look at the last 3 games. Matt Ryan's played 20. He's gotten 25 minutes. 25 minutes, 17 points, and 20 fantasy points. 35 minutes, 20 points, 27 fantasy points. He has very scoring dependent. So, like, if you're going to play Matt Ryan, he needs to make shots. This is obviously a really tough defense to make shots against. So there's that. Also, I feel like Luke Kennard's a little better of a play for $300 less. That's someone that you've given a lot of love to over the past few slates. Look at the minutes for Luke Kennard are great, dude. Like 15, 21, 27, 32 minutes, like completely X'd out. And that was with returning Aldama, Biyombo entering the rotation.
Yeah, they stopped playing Roddy. They stopped playing all those other guys.
And Konchar's hurt, and you have no Derrick Rose. So, like, yeah, I mean, if you wanted to get to someone down here, I don't hate the idea of Luke Kennard. That would probably be you could play Matt Ryan in Luke Kennard for $300 cheaper, and Luke Kennard does more peripherally, right? Like, they both are players that are on the floor to space.
Yeah. And Ryan played 25 minutes. He gave you 1 assist. He played 35 minutes. He gave you 2 rebounds, 2 assists. He's got to knock down all of his shots there. All right, small forward here. Again, some big spend ups. Tatum, LeBron. We weren't really in on Paul George, but Scotty Barnes is here at $8,900. And what is a pace up spot for Toronto here tonight? Anthony Edwards, probably hard to play him now with the way that the lineup for the Pelicans has gone. Does Lauri Markkanen now become interesting? Does he have a rebound ceiling now potential? With Collins at the 5?
We've kind of seen how that's dropped off the last few games. So I definitely think there is a ceiling. His price on FanDuel is really appealing, 8,100. I like him a little more over there. Definitely double in the cards here. And like we've seen almost a 60-point ceiling twice for Markkanen. So you could definitely play him if that's where you end up. That's probably the first guy I would honestly get to at small forward. The other guys you can obviously all play in tournaments. They're all fine. But Markkanen's probably the first name that I'm clicking.
Sure. Again, more guys we've discussed already in the other tier. Shaedon Sharpe, Zach LaVine, DeMar DeRozan, all great spots for him. Oscar Thompson, maybe a little pricey, 6,900. My banky this year has been Gordon Hayward. In that massive game total here. Good space. He's healthy, which is great. He took 23 shots, which, again, I think had probably to do maybe no Terry Rozier. We're just seeing everybody else get a few more looks here. Had his worst shooting game of the season, which is kind of unfortunate. If he shot 45 or 50% from the floor, 23 shots, he would have broke the slate again. I'm easily going back to the well here. I'm big on Gordon Hayward tonight.
Yeah, he's averaged 1.06 fantasy points per minute without Rozier this year. 36 fantasy points per game. What more do you need in a 240 total for a guy really stuffing the stat sheet? John, 40 shot attempts the last 2 games, by the way. I think that's not surprising to see considering Rozier out and Brandon Miller struggling. 40 shot attempts for Gordon Hayward.
Yeah, again, the offensive player, he's healthy. He fills the stat sheet. The rebounds have been really good. The assists have been really good here. He's playing some defense as well. Steals in all but 1 game, blocks in all but 2 games here. So really good spot for Gordon Hayward on that fast-paced tempo. In the mid-tier, though, there are some pretty solid plays. Michael Porter Jr., 3 straight strong performances now. Got Golden State here tonight. No Jamal Murray picking up the slack offensively. Do you like Michael Porter Jr. tonight?
Yes, I do. He made the core play section of the playbook today. I'm actually okay getting to him or Aaron Gordon. We don't need to, we could just talk about both of them at the same time. Both have been really, really productive fantasy-wise. I like that Michael Porter now has multi-position eligibility, small forward, power forward. That's not something he's had ever. But 3 straight games of 22 actual or more and 38 plus DraftKings points. He's loved Denver, 35 fantasy points per game at home compared to 27. And that kind of seems like a theme for Denver because the altitude, like they're just used to it. This is a fun game environment. He doesn't have to deal with Draymond at all. 1.06 fantasy points without Jamal Murray. Love the price and everything to do with Michael Porter tonight.
Agreed. Anybody else down here? We did have a question on Austin Reeves earlier, coming off a couple of good games. Beezy wants to know, are we doing any Austin Reeves here this evening?
Shout out Beezy in the chat. Haven't seen you in a couple of days. Good to see you back.
We also, to answer your question, the Detroit Pistons are our Minnesota Twins this year.
Yeah, I don't know if Beezy's been it right. He might have missed it. I would prefer if there's no AD, but he has been productive.
And nearly triple dubbed against Miami. So
yeah, Davis played 24 minutes in that game. So like, there's definitely, a ceiling when Davis is not on the floor. Probably contingent on AD.
Sure. Moving on down the way, any small forwards here for some value? Obviously, the Agbaji news opens up a guy that they took in the first round last year. They definitely liked what he can. You and I still think of him more as like a shooter with limited peripheral stats, but I think didn't last year he had like that one crazy game where he actually had like 10 rebounds or something like that, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, one game. He had that one game.
Shams reporting that Devin Vassell may play tonight. I don't know if that changes.
That is kind of insane. I mean, that just makes the Spurs look even worse than they already did. I thought they looked terrible to begin with. So, putting a high usage player in there, not the best. For value at small forward, I like Jaden McDaniels, John. This is a guy that you and I kind of have played at like low pricing in years past. And I wasn't interested really in Jaden McDaniels because 24, 21, 20 minutes the first 3 games. How about 45 minutes? And he played overtime. Overtime's 5 minutes, John. Can you guess how many minutes based on the math that Jaden McDaniels played in regulation?
So my guess is he played 40 doing that
40.
quick math there.
40.
Probably had to do with they needed somebody to guard Jason Tatum during this game.
Brandon Ingram. Come on down.
All right. Yeah.
Right? I mean,
listen, he gave you 21 fantasy points in 24 minutes, 22 fantasy points in 21 minutes, and then 26 and 45. You know that I love Jaden McDaniels. He's not going to take 18 shots again, though. So that's the problem. The shot volume it's just such a low floor for him.
There is a low floor. Love the minutes. Obviously, like the price, the spot New Orleans is obviously beat up and whatnot. But 42 minutes, and then I'll just throw Jay Crowder's name and throw it out there.
No Chris Middleton, and now there's no Chris Middleton. So
yeah, and he's already been playing. So he's going to start when he started in that Miami game, or he started in the Atlanta game rather. Sorry, 26 minutes. Didn't play the final 15 minutes of the game. So he was tracking for another 30 plus minutes. In Atlanta, would have played more if not for the blowout. So you can safely project in a competitive setting, Jay Crowder plays 33 minutes. The only problem is this a competitive setting? I'm not too confident that is the case.
Yeah, hard to really know here. Where is Agbaji's $3,100? A starter that's $3,100 is going to get rostership for sure.
He's just, yeah. I don't know if he's in my player pool. I understand it if you want to. He's averaged less than 8 fantasy points in 13 minutes a game this year. He can go out there and make a couple shots. I'm sure he can get us to where we need to get to. But I honestly, if I'm playing someone down there, I'd probably just rather take a dart on Julian Strawther, who
3K.
Isn't like fully in my. Yeah, I mean, I would just I know Julian Strawther's going out there. Not for a long time, for a good time, John. He's going out there to chuck, and he has made that very apparent. He made that very apparent last game, 13 shots in 19 minutes. I'd rather just take a shot on Strawther, sans Jamal Murray, but probably not.
Trying to see if we have any updated rostership that I can get to some people here on the fly before I upload it. Kellyo still super chalk. This is updated a minute ago. So Killian Hayes is up there. No major movement on the Utah guys, but we'll see if that eventually comes around here. To see if anybody else gets some more love. Conte doesn't look like he's been updated yet, so we'll run this again before hopefully roster lock breaks around. Power forward, where some of the expensive men live. Durant is 10-6, Giannis 10-5. Any interest there? And people will probably be able to get to them now.
I'm not playing Durant with Beal back. I am actually pretty interested in Giannis. And I only as a tournament pivot, obviously, away from Jokic and Embiid. We're only going to get this price for so long. We're only going to, have Giannis under 11K. I understand Lillard changes the equation, but we finally saw Giannis be Giannis last game. And 36 and 12, where he got you 3 blocks and steals combined. That's what Giannis has done time and time again. if there's no Jalen Duren, there's just no chance Detroit has to stop Giannis at the rim. There's just not. I mean, Marvin Bagley, Isaiah Stewart, James Wiseman, what are they going to do, right? So Giannis is definitely someone I have interest in tournaments. I would rank him like of the top. I would spend basically on 3 guys over 10K, Jokic, Embiid, Giannis. Those are like my 3 that I would get to. He would be third, but I definitely have interest in tournaments.
Yep. The Prince asking about Memphis injury history. There's no Tillman tonight, and obviously they're down.
Everyone, a lot. They're down a lot.
Yeah,
they're down a lot tonight.
Down a few different guys today. So, certainly can get some value again. No Tillman tonight. We don't Concher, Derrick Rose. We know is obviously not available either. So, they'll probably stop Biyombo again as we expect. Aldama come off the bench. Kind of the reason why we like Luke Kennard as a potential value play there as well. Mid-tier range, again, Wemby's $8,600, and now the Spurs might be more competitive in this game. I mean, there was, what was this, an eight-point spread? If Vassell plays tonight, you got to think that game might be a little bit more back and forth. So you got Wemby at 86, Triple J at home at $8,400 here. Towns, Zinger, where are we looking at power forward tonight?
I don't have much interest in this tier. It's mostly the 7K range. Like you can play Wemby in tournaments. Triple J obviously has shown a ceiling. This isn't the best spot, but it is at home. We know his scorekeeper loves himself some Jaren Jackson defensive stats. Karl Anthony Towns tournaments, he's been pretty disappointing, but 8,100 is a good price. Zinger, really tough matchup, I would say, on the anytime you're facing Embiid. But I mean, my mind has mostly been made up with Kyle Kuzma at 7,500. I think he's one of the best mid-tier plays of the slate. He was the cover of our podcast this morning, mainly because the picture that you picked was really cool, but he deserves it. I mean, he's a guy that has gotten 30 minutes 3 times this year, John, and in all 3 of those games, he's gone for 44 plus fantasy points. Like, he has a really safe floor when he gets minutes. He has a really high ceiling when he gets minutes. He is a guy who stuffs the stat sheet, maybe not with your defensive stats every game, but rebounds, assists, points have been super consistent throughout for Kyle Kuzma. And I don't see a reason why like that suddenly changes in a game with a 240 total. And in a game that was opened at 4, they're only 2-point dogs. Like they're like, as much as we really don't like Washington and we think they're probably going to be, and probably is putting it lightly, the worst team in the NBA. This has a ceiling written all over.
What Kyle Kuzma is, he doesn't get in foul trouble.
No. Whoa! Please knock on wood, John. Please do it. Do your best.
But he's not a guy that generally finds himself in a little trouble there. Kuzma's there. DDR like is a little bit of a pivot. Had a ceiling scoring game for himself there. You talked Aaron Gordon earlier. How are we approaching Portland here tonight? Jeremy Grant, $6,900.
If Jeremy Grant scores, it's not a surprise. If Jeremy Grant gets peripheral stats, it's a surprise. So, he needs to. It's hard for me to get there. We have Oscar Thompson, 6,900 at the same price, doing a lot more. Aaron Gordon, 67. You can play Hayward or Michael Porter here at power forward.
The Hayward power forward is new as well, no?
Yeah, I think so as well. And that's great. Makes it even better to play Gordon Hayward. And then you now have John Collins at 6K starting at center. And I was interested in Collins to begin with because when I was looking at the numbers earlier, he leads the team in usage bump when Walker Kessler's off the floor. He leads them in DK point differential, 1.13 fantasy points per minute for John Collins when Walker Kessler. Who
fouls out first, Miles Turner or John Collins tonight?
John Collins or Miles Turner. Both. They'll just foul each other out.
Five fouls already know where we're going with this one.
Yeah.
He'll foul out too, don't you worry.
Yeah, he might foul out.
Definitely like Jalen Smith, though. We talked about him this morning. Obviously, given all the value that's opening up, it's super
tough to get to.
It's 1 of 20 lineups, Jalen Smith. Or if you just want to get crazy with a single lineup, obviously we know he can be a 2-point per minute player. Some pretty productive days there. If no Jalen Duren, Isaiah Stewart, any interest for you?
Mild. I think he's talk about foul risk. I know he's not like super high in that spectrum, but he has to guard.
If Herbert is active, and he played Give you 41 fantasy points in
Yes.
that game with no Zion, no all those other guys here.
He's just a really good player. So, yeah, and we talked about it that night. We were like, damn, that was such a sharp play to move to Herb Jones because everyone played everyone else, but nobody played Herb Jones on that slate.
Yep. No Draymond. We haven't really discussed the no Draymond news yet. You have Kuminga at $4,900 and Dario Saric at $44. You got a favorite of the two?
And Wiggins 54 for that matter. I mean, the Sarge price obviously is most appealing. I suspect Kuminga would start before him, but they could also start Chris Paul.
I was gonna say,
if they
you
really
have to
wanted
assume they probably go to the Chris Paul lineup, don't you?
Probably.
Because that's what they did to begin the year.
Yeah, and then that moves Wiggins to the 4. So I assume that's what they would go with. You know, we saw Kuminga in that role play like 26 minutes a couple times. So that's fine. It's a GPP. I guess if I'm ranking them, Wiggins probably first just by default because I have the most confidence in him starting. Saric second, and Kuminga third. Saric has been really good peripherally outside of the one game that you and I played.
Yeah.
So I mean, he's just been super productive in every game.
Wedge between them is Santi Aldama at $4,800.
Yeah, I mean, look, if Santi Aldama plays 25 minutes, it wouldn't shock me. If he started, it wouldn't shock me. He's a good basketball player. We just have no idea. This Memphis rotation is nuts. I mean, they started Bismack on a whim. Aldama 20 minutes. They were playing Roddy 30. Now Kennard's playing 30. Like, they have no idea what they're doing without Ja. They have no idea. So it's just a risk only because we don't know what Aldama is going to actually play. And we have like values that we mentioned at small forward that are also power forward eligible and like other small forward.
Center spot. Joker's here at 11.7, JoJo at 11K. You wrote them both up in the playbook today. But if you had to pick one.
In that write-up, I leaned Jokic, but I specified that there is leverage going to Embiid because Jokic is getting decent ownership where like nobody's playing Embiid. And I get it. It's Boston. They're one of the best defensive units in the NBA. But again, sometimes you play good players in bad spots or great players in bad spots and they reward you, right? I mean, Embiid's had 80 and 75 in 2 games in which he's not top 31 minutes. So in what you expect to be a competitive game in Philly, I mean, Embiid has as high a ceiling as anyone else. And you get leverage going from Jokic to Embiid. The caveat is always going to be Jamal Murray doesn't exist right now. Nikola Jokic is quite literally bringing the ball up. So I would lean Jokic. I have absolutely no problem saving the 700 and getting leverage going to.
If AD is in and AD is active, do we go back to Anthony Davis, who is giving you the same type of production as the other two? Now, we haven't gotten 80 yet out of him, but we've gotten more 60 fantasy point games out of him than those two.
Yeah, I think it's a reasonable approach. I think you also save a good amount of money. You save almost $2,000 going down to Jokic or from Jokic to AD, and you save $1,100 going from Embiid to Davis. So I think it's a very reasonable.
XDS earlier asked us our thoughts on Bam here. He also wanted to know Mobley, and it was Bam, Mobley, and Şengün tonight. Bam coming off of a 22-point, 20 rebound, 10 assist, triple-double against the Lakers. Now, a lot of that was against Christian Wood. Tonight he's got Bismack Biyombo, though, and Jaren Jackson. Do we get a repeat from Bam tonight, or is the defensive player of the year hold him down?
So, like, I think that's somewhere in the middle. Repeat? No. So, do I think Jaren Jackson Jr. holds him down? No. So, like, somewhere in the middle of repeat, and I think Bam's a fine play, and if you end on Bam, I think you're probably happy with that, unless you play Bam like I did against the Washington Wizards, who was the best matchup on the board. But in the 2-game sandwich between that, 73 and 50 fantasy points, I think you'd be super happy with either of those outcomes. So he has a super wide range of outcomes. I think he's fine in tournaments.
Chet, someone that we keep going back to. We talked about the matchup against Atlanta with SGA back, and he gave you 45 fantasy points again. They're not really touching his price tag. It's got Cleveland. He's already faced Cleveland once this year. Now, there's no Jared Allen in that game, but he had 7 blocks, 16 points, and 3 rebounds. So Chet at $7,800.
Tournaments. That I would get to him in tournaments. I also like the eligibility for Chet. You can play him at.
I'm just pulling out my heartstrings here. Feeling like it's going to be a Hartenstein.
Oh no! Oh,
you know, I love me some Hartenstein here, Faisal.
More than anyone else.
Probably accurate. DeAndre Ayton, no Rob Williams anymore behind him. Give you another double-digit rebound game. Get Sacramento here. Any interest at 7K? Any other guys in this range that you're interested
in? Ayton he's not dominating. But he's fine. I think this could be one of those games where you need DeAndre Ayton to be DeAndre Ayton of Phoenix days because, he's going to have a really tough assignment on the other side of this matchup with Sabonis. He's fine. I think he's a tournament play. I think Miles Turner obviously has a super high range of outcomes or super wide range of outcomes. He's in play for tournaments. If anyone else in this tier really piques my interest, it's probably Mark Williams in tournaments. Best game environment on the board. He's been really good the last 2 games specifically, especially he's just super efficient scoring the basketball. It's crazy efficiency. He has a high ceiling in terms of blocks and steals. He has multiple 4.
I wish he had a worse
block
center
games.
than Nick Richards.
I agree. Dude,
Nick Richards is good.
Yeah, he is good. He is actually really good. I fully agree, and that's probably why, in most situations that I'm
look at this. Nick Richards is giving you 27 fantasy points in 3 straight games off the bench. I mean,
yeah. And playing honestly, playing
probably
Nick Richards
a sharp pivot tonight, right?
Probably a sharp pivot. Now
he's not as cheap as he used to be, so.
He's not as cheap as he used to be. And in this range, in the Nick Richards range, I really like Daniel Gafford. 30 and 28 minutes in the 2 games that they've stayed competitive. And he's giving you 28, 33 fantasy points. And he's a similar price starting in the best game environment.
What helps for Gafford is they don't have a backup center. So even with the 5 fouls, you have to be out there. So
yeah, please don't pick up a 6. We saw what happens when Kyle Kuzma is playing center. Please don't. So that would probably be my only issue with playing someone like Mark Williams is one, you mentioned Nick Richards. If Nick Richards comes in, it's 6 for 6. They're we don't Mark can just sit out for a little longer, and you get to Gafford, who's $1,200 cheaper in the same game environment, and who has shown similar ceiling when he gets them.
Agreed. Callio's still at 45. I'm willing to go there still. I'm not afraid off of the Olynyk thing there. Any other centers for you here? Biyombo, if he starts again, do you run that against Miami here?
Not at 51. That was a fast meteoric rise in price. Probably can't get there.
Then obviously if AD was to get ruled out, Christian Wood. Is Christian Wood an in play anyways, given the minutes he gets, and then you just hope that AD gets groin spasms again or something like that?
I would say not anymore. Rui Hachimura rolled in. I think that's kind of a piece that a news that flew under the radar today. He's ruled in. I think Rui's going to step back into his 15 to 17 minute range, and that cuts, I think, directly into Christian Wood. So I think to get to Christian Wood, we would definitely need the Anthony Davis news. I also just I love playing me some Naz Reid. I would. I mean,
this would be a Naz Reid spot, man.
Look, he is really, really productive. He is the backup. He plays backup in both both spots. And there's always chance for foul trouble on Towns and Gobert.
Probably not. We didn't talk J-Val. I mean, it's not a great matchup for him, but any interest in Valanciunas, they need a big body on the floor against Towns and Gobert.
We saw what can do. We talk about this often. He got 33 minutes in Detroit, and he went for 54 fantasy points. Granted, it was a nice matchup for Valanciunas in that spot. But and we know Gobert isn't gonna get him in foul trouble. I would say just don't put him on Towns. And
they'll never. Jones probably goes on Towns, I would imagine.
Yeah. I'm just saying, like, please don't, like, in any scenario. If they keep this game competitive, Valanciunas has a lot to say as a reason why. So, if you're building one lineup, no. If you're an MME player, also big news, Jamal Murray out for the rest of the month.
Wow.
So we're going to see how this Denver rotation shakes out more and more. If Julian Strawther is going to play more and more, it's definitely going to be something to monitor. But Valanciunas in, like, if you're playing 20 lineups, like 10%.
Sure. All right, let's make our lineup here for the evening. James, talk to me about where we're starting and how you want to go about constructing this roster build tonight.
Probably start with LaMelo.
Okay.
I feel he's probably, like, right. I mean, LaMelo. Yeah. Do you? What's your, like, opinion on spending up tonight? Or
let's see what what do you want to do for value? Is Keontae George in your lineup tonight? Is Kelly O still in your lineup tonight? Where Strawther is still in your lineup? Like, where are you, Hawkins? Like, where are you going with value for tonight?
I'm definitely in on Hawkins. Like, I'm willing to differentiate elsewhere. He's too cheap for the ceiling that we just saw. Especially, he's going to continue to start with the shot attempts. So I think his ceiling is too high to miss out on.
All right, so we have 6K left for the remainder of the positions. Obviously, we know there is some value there. I mean, if we wanted to do George as a guard, where we think he's just going to play minutes,
yep,
$6,500 for the forward, centers, and util position remaining.
Yeah, and there's a lot of forward value, like McDaniels or Crowder or all the Warriors guys. We don't know what New Orleans is going to do. Like, there is a ton of value at forward as well.
Oh, are you spending up for somebody then tonight? Like, what's the next move for you here?
I'm probably spending up on Jokic as it currently
that gives
stands.
It 52.50. So that's the 25. This is where I'm trying to see. All right, so this is our base. We have 52.25 left to build a lineup. We know there's some value still available on the board. I guess it all depends on how risky you want to get with some of these plays here. Now, like, if we still like Kelly Olynyk, he is center eligible. We can play him at utility for 45. If you like Strawther, he's $3,000, can play at small forward, right? Like, to get you some additional value at that spot. We've talked, some cheaper guys in the low 5K range that maybe we had some interest in here as well. Where was it that we're going down there?
Killian
Hayes is 4,900. Sasser is in 45.
So this is the argument against Keontae George, right?
Possibly.
Because now so here, well, just lineup construction, right? You're now putting a 7:00 player basically in your util spot, right? And you are unable, and sometimes it doesn't matter. Like, there might not be pivots to even be had, but you are now making a decision between Keontae George and Detroit, unless you're putting a 7:00 player in your util. I'm not really comfortable with that on a 14-game slate personally. That would be, like, something that I'm, like, a little against. I'm not saying Keontae. I'm just saying that's the decision you're making. You're making a decision between the Detroit value or Keontae George.
I mean, you're going to have to throw some darts on a true value here if you don't want George, obviously, to get Jokic in a lineup, because you're at 5K.
Right.
With per player with 4 positions needing to go. So if you felt more comfortable just throwing Strawther out there at 3K in the late night game at small forward and giving you 57.50 a play or 57.30 a play, just for some additional value options. I mean, we're, again, trying to build out a lineup. Like, where's your next move at?
I'm okay with Strawther. We could do, like, a McDaniels 42. We could play Crowder at 39. Both those guys fit either fit the forward spots, or you could play Crowder at the power forward spot. What else? 4K value do we have? Matt Ryan, Saric. Kennard is unfortunate. it's a crappy position, but Kennard he works in the 8K or in the 8 o'clock tier. Then we have what, 6,100.
Do you want to fit Kuzma?
Yeah,
it gives us a $4,800 forward. Aldama, throw another Memphis player out there.
Nah, it's too much
Nas?
bench Memphis. I'm okay with Nas.
There you go. $200 left over. If you wanted to move off Kennard, certainly could still do so. $4,200. I don't know. Anything out here 42 for you?
I mean, it's probably 4,200 is McDaniels, Keontae George, or
did you play McDaniels and Nas?
Jay Crowder? No, probably not. Yeah, probably not.
So do you like Keontae George or do you like Kennard?
That's tough. Probably George in the better spot. It's just the lock at 7 thing that I struggle with.
I mean, we can move. I guess. I don't know.
No, we can't. No, that's the problem. Sasser. Oh, Sasser's at 8. Yeah, move Sasser. Move Sasser. He's at 8. Yeah.
All right, so just an example lineup for everybody. Again, we'll have the updated playbook news in the playbook in our Discord as well. So all of you there, if you haven't already liked and subscribed to the channel, please do so. It helps us out immensely. If you're not yet a member of the Fantasy Alarm family, go to fantasyalarm.com/win. Take advantage of our All-Pro offer going on today. Get access to all of our premium content that is available on site right now, including our premium Discord, where we're in there answering your questions to roster lock. We'll be updating the rostership percentages shortly as well. James, any final thoughts here for the people at home?
No, if anything breaks, it will be in the playbook. We'll be in Discord and all that good stuff. So make sure you're locked in, and make sure you're locked in post-lock too. Like, there's a lot of news to be had after 7. It's not just set it and forget it. We talked about this on today's show or this morning's show, but NBA more than anything is not set it and forget it. It's set it. Check your phone for, turn on notifications. Go into our Discord. We have an entire lineups channel. Like, there's a lot of things you can do to see who's in and who's out after lock, because that's when the sharpest sharks swim in the water.
Agreed. All right, everybody, good luck. We'll be back. Just 2 games tomorrow, so we'll only have a preview show. We won't be back live tomorrow for Thursday, but we will be back live Friday, 5 o'clock Eastern time. And, of course, we'll have the preview show for tomorrow and Friday as well. Give us a follow on Twitter. Follow us on the channel here. Get in our Discord, and we'll catch you guys later.